And a happy weekend to you, Central Georgia. Thanks for tuning in here for a look at your extended forecast. Going to format this a little bit different than we typically do. Of course, we'll take a look at some event-specific forecasts as we go into the weekend ahead, but we also have a lot of current conditions to break down as of Friday. It has been a very dreary into the work week. So first things first, let's talk about your 24-hour rainfall totals, where so far we are seeing a good amount more of some rain in farther north central Georgia as opposed to down to the south. But that does kind of make sense because we are still continuing to hold on to some showers in areas farther down to the south and the southeast here in central Georgia. So let's go over some of the more substantial totals. We actually had some pockets of maybe 3 to 4 inches of rain across areas like southern Jasper County, maybe right there around Lake Sinclair, over here in Hancock County. I was going to say Baldwin County right here. But the general range in northern central Georgia, 1 to 2 inches of rainfall, probably some of the most significant widespread rainfall totals above an inch that we have seen so far in 2026. So that 3.7 and the 4.3 going to take the cake for the highest totals that we can see. Maybe going over to Sandersville, we can spot some other totals that are getting up there just above 2 inches, 1.4 in Irwinton. Right here in the middle of Macon, so right in between 475 and 75, you can spot about 2.5 inches of rain, but most of Macon got somewhere just above the inch mark, 1.3 inches in Gray, 1.2 in Forsyth, and 1.7 down in Thomaston. And we can see that this green patch does extend farther over to the west, areas just to the west of Butler in Taylor County, 2.8 inches of rain, but everyone else down in south central Georgia falling just short of the 1 inch mark. Does look like some spots there in Macon County around Montezuma got about an inch of rain. Same with Cordele down there just off I-75, but you can see some totals of only about 1/4 of an inch in Dublin, Cochran, down to Eastman, and down into McRae, about 1/2 inch of rain over there in Abbeville, Perry 1/2 inch of rain, and just shy of an inch in areas like Fort Valley and in Warner Robins. But the bulk of the rain, that has gone to northern Georgia. So our frontal boundary that did pass through and is continuing to pass through stalled out to the north of us in the northern portion of the state. There were some totals up to 5 inches in some areas like Floyd County up in the Rome area of Georgia. We even saw some flash flood warnings issued for the North Metro Atlanta area because when you get a whole lot of rain in a short period of time, that's going to result in the ponding of a lot of roadways. So these areas in northern Georgia got their fair share of rain. We even saw a hailstorm up in areas of North Georgia as of yesterday as well. So it was a pretty active into the work week, and all of this rain once again is going to be very much needed, not just for us here in central Georgia, but once again areas up to the north that are sitting in a severe and even a patch of an extreme drought up the I-85 corridor. Here in central Georgia, the latest drought monitor update didn't show too much improvement, but what we did see is areas like Macon, Warner Robins down to Perry, portions of Peach County, Macon County over to Marshallville, maybe Jeffersonville down here in Twiggs County. We did see these areas alleviated of at least the severe drought criteria, bumping back down into moderate drought criteria. And these were the areas that did get the bulk of the rainfall over the course of this past weekend. We still see patches of an extreme drought in that red color extending over to the west, but we saw some fairly impressive rainfall totals between 1 to 2, maybe even 3 inches in portions of Taylor County and Upson County. Down in southeast central Georgia, haven't seen too impressive of some rainfall totals as of yet. We'll hope that does come to fruition because these areas down here like Telfair, Wheeler, Montgomery, Toombs, Trutland, Lawrence, and Johnson counties all definitely need their fair share of rain. So you're either under moderate drought, severe drought, or extreme drought criteria. Hopefully we'll see some improvement, but we won't get another drought monitor update until next Thursday. So all that data will be taken as of March 3rd, I do believe is what next Tuesday is, and then we'll get the release on March 5th, which will be next Thursday. So a dreary Friday morning will transition into a pretty nice rest of the weekend forecast. It will be mostly dry. Emphasis on the word mostly. We are going to have a few rain chances to talk about, but it's nothing worth canceling any outdoor plans over, and it's maybe not even enough of a rain chance to warrant bringing the rain gear and keeping it close by over the course of this weekend. We're staying in the 70s. In fact, could we flirt with 80 degrees as we roll into the month of March? So far, the important thing that you are seeing with your 7-day forecast is no signs of another cold snap like we did have at the beginning of this past work week. We are going to continue with the spring-like stretch of weather as we roll into the first month of officially spring. In fact, meteorological spring will get started on Sunday, which will be March 1st. The actual turn of the season of winter into spring is going to be sometime a little bit later in March. I believe it's going to be March 22nd, but we'll go over how many days we have until that at the end of your extended forecast. Walking it around the quad, our camera in Perry looks like it has resolved some of his technical issues so far. Maybe a little bit of a drizzle there, and down in Warner Robins. Dublin, it does look predominantly dry right now. In downtown Macon, we're actually seeing some signs of that cloud cover trying to clear out. So your current temperatures all across the east United States, we are a little bit cooler than the rest, I imagine, due to some rain-cooled air and due to our fair share of some cloud cover. Areas over to the west and the northwest are dealing with plenty of high pressure behind the frontal boundary, so they're already, say, into the upper 60s, above the 60-degree mark, while we're a little bit cooler like Montgomery and Charleston, holding on to some of that cloud cover and some of that rain. So we can see that there is a pretty fine temperature difference between Macon going down to Jacksonville and Orlando. We'll talk more about that in just a moment, but this is really showing a very good picture about where the cloud cover and rain is currently situated, where you see that darker green shade, that's indicating some cooler numbers. In fact, the 57 you see in Macon is matching Columbus and Dothan for one of the coolest numbers we see in the southeast corner of the United States. Of course, Greenville, naturally just a little bit cooler because it's at the base of the Appalachian Mountains, but most areas that don't have rain are already above the 60-degree mark, and areas ahead of the frontal boundary are still holding on to that warm and muggy air mass like Brunswick and Jacksonville, sitting at 72 and 76 degrees respectively. So here in central Georgia, these numbers have actually been a little bit warmer over the course of your Friday morning as compared to what they are now. Once that rain did move through, it cooled the temperatures down as low as the mid-50s, which we still see in many spots over to the west like Thomaston, Roberta, and Butler. But the numbers did start out somewhere in the lower half of the 60s for the most part, and we're still seeing some of those 60s on your temperature map. 60 in Cochrane, 60 in Swainsboro, along with Cordele, 61 in Vidalia, but 62 takes the cake for the warmest number that we see here in central Georgia, and that's down in Telfair County and McRae. So the winds have been quite interesting this morning. They have definitely subsided after the passage of our frontal boundary, but we continue to see this graphic popping up, maybe some gusts up to 21 miles per hour, and there's no real shades of any color. We're not even seeing the wind arrows really moving at a good clip up here in Bibb County. So I think we're having some issues with this graphic. This graphic isn't the most reliable sometimes, but it does give us a general idea. The main thing you need to know is the gustier winds have moved down to the south and the southeast after some gusts got up to close to 40 miles per hour already over the course of your Friday morning. And we're still holding on to a little bit of moisture, which is also going to translate once we pop it over to your satellite and radar image right here, because we are holding on to some moisture, so we are going to continue to hold on to our fair share of some showers, even as we get closer to the lunchtime hour. But it finally does look like we are beginning to see most of our north and northwestern counties continuing to clear out in terms of the rain chances at the very least. So no rain to be found until you get down into areas like Wilkinson County, over here to southern Washington County. Let me switch sides over here on the screen. South of Sandersville, mainly some light rain, but a few pockets of some yellow indicating maybe a little bit of a steadier shower in nature. And then we go into northern Johnson County, a few sprinkles there. Down in the southern half of Wilkinson County, closer to the Irwinton area as opposed to Gordon. Right near our radar in Twiggs County, right there around Jeffersonville, but we can see that Monroe County, Upson County, Jasper, Putnam, Hancock, getting to Baldwin, Jones, and even most of Bibb. You guys are looking entirely clear, and I don't believe there's going to be much more rain to talk about for the foreseeable future. So down here in Macon and in Taylor counties, this is where we are seeing the steady and maybe even some heavy rainfall continue. Areas like Marshallville, Montezuma, getting over to Oglethorpe, and the southeast corner of Taylor County, pretty close to Rupert. That's where we are continuing to see that steadier and the heavier rainfall, which hopefully will result in some higher rainfall totals continuing to get added into the forecast. And I'm actually hoping that this batch right here will continue to push over to the east and give some areas like Houston County, Bleckley County, Pulaski, Lawrence, and maybe even down to Dodge County, once again, some higher rainfall totals. So continuing to supplement some of the rainfall totals we've already seen with just a little bit more, but this green shade not going to really do too much in terms of adding to some of those impressive rainfall totals, and that's what's pretty widespread across Pulaski and most of Dooley County right now. But we can see some steadier rainfall creeping into western Dooley County around the Byronville area, and then some spotty sprinkles in areas like Telfair County down to Wilcox County, maybe a few scattered sprinkles around Dublin, but nothing really in the way of rainfall down in Wheeler, Montgomery, getting over to Treutlen counties as of right now. So here's this frontal boundary and system of rain as a whole. It is just a kind of broken line of continuous moisture down here in the southeast United States. Most of the steadier and heavier rainfall probably over here closer to the Charleston and Myrtle Beach areas on coastal South Carolina. Some of those showers moving up into the coastal North Carolina region, pretty close to Wilmington, getting up to Fayetteville. And then it goes all the way back down to the southwest into southern and southeastern Alabama. But there's thunderstorms down here in the panhandle of Florida. That's just because typically they're holding on to a warmer and a more humid air mass. They have more ingredients that are suitable for something of the stronger to maybe even severe weather nature down there just to the south of Dothan as you get closer to areas like Destin down towards Panama City and those areas along I-10 just north of Destin and Panama City down there along the coast. So nothing in the way of a severe thunderstorm, but we do see our fair share of lightning down there. We even had a couple flashes of lightning pop up on our radar imagery earlier, but it wasn't really anything too substantial in nature. I didn't hear anything on my way to work. Many of you might have gotten awoken by a rumble of thunder or two, but it was nothing in the way of severe weather. However, those gusts even got up to 40 to 45 miles per hour this morning with some non-severe storms. We didn't even have any special weather statement criteria. Goes to show that you don't need severe weather in order to have an impact in your forecast. You can have some lower end thunderstorms that pack a punch with some gusty winds, which did result in some downed tree limbs that we saw on the GDOT website early this morning. So 68 for a high temperature as of Thursday afternoon. Once again, the second consecutive day that we returned back above that average mark of 66 degrees. 58 for a morning low. That was obviously well above the average morning low of 41 degrees. We didn't see too much of a temperature spread due to the cloudy skies that were present pretty much from sunup all the way to sundown throughout your Thursday afternoon. And of course, nowhere near the record low or high temperature of 83 and 15 degrees. But it does look like we actually got a little bit of an early start. We had some rain recorded at Middle Georgia Regional Airport, only 2/100ths of an inch, but every little bit is going to be helpful. And I'm hoping that we can add some totals, say around 1 inch in nature, to hopefully put a pretty good significant dent in that year departure of rain, which is now 3.2 inches below where we should be for 2026. So February high temperatures after a brief cold snap of 3 days, we have returned back above average, 2 consecutive days at 68 degrees for a high temperature, and we've seen double the amount of days above average as we have seen below average for the month of February. So going to close out the month of February today and tomorrow, and I imagine both days are both going to continue to be above average, and we'll make that tally 19, nearly 20 days above average for the month of February. And the messy morning will continue to get better and better as we head into the afternoon. 69 degrees for a high temperature. There will be some peaks of sunshine later on today. And the winds have already really subsided, but we're going to continue to talk about that over the course of your weekend. Not going to really be a factor whatsoever. The main story is we should finally get some peaks of sunshine as we close out your Friday afternoon and head into your Friday evening. But there are a few rain chances that we will nail down, and we'll talk about those very briefly coming up. So you can really see our temperatures don't waver much as we go throughout the next couple of hours into just past lunchtime all the way into the early afternoon, but it's sometime around 3 to 4, maybe 5 o'clock that we actually do get a bump up in the temperature department, and I think that's when finally our cloud cover does decide to clear. So this is what's going on surface map wise. Our frontal boundary is a widespread system with some low pressure centers established within it. But this section of the boundary that is trying to push through central Georgia has kind of stalled out just a little bit. It's been doing that across the entire state of Georgia. It is going to kick back into motion, which I think it really just has over the last couple of hours. And that's going to continue to push all of that moisture down to the south and the southeast and eventually out of the picture. Then our best friend, high pressure, will settle into the forecast, and that's going to result in a dry environment like we see up to the north and the northwest of us currently. So let's go ahead and flash forward all the way into 5 o'clock. This is going to be evening commute home time. A much better forecast to go home to as opposed to what you walked out the door with. Don't get me wrong, we're not going to have an extended period of some sunshine throughout this afternoon. So I do imagine that many of those ponding areas or maybe slick surfaces on the roads are going to have some trouble drying out. However, we might see some pretty substantial drying out if we are to get some sunshine a little bit earlier than anticipated. But it does look like we still have a few spotty light showers. And what I mean by spotty, it's going to mean that your showers of the isolated nature. Only a select few areas are going to get these. It's nothing to really bank on getting in the form of some rain, but we also could continue to keep those chances possible into your Friday night and your Friday evening plans. This is 9 p.m. where we see a couple of those light green dots in the near vicinity of us. They're only going to pop up in areas that do have some scattered cloud cover. So if you are seeing crystal clear skies, you look up later on tonight, you're seeing the stars, you're not going to really have a chance of that rain. It's only going to be where that cloud cover is passing over you. But we will keep the clouds and the gloomy skies in the picture for your Saturday morning. So overnight into tomorrow morning, this is going to help keep the morning low temperatures at least a little bit warmer than they could be on a crystal clear night. But also, once again, maybe a chance of a mist or a brief drizzle shower, something that's very likely going to be so light in nature that the radar is not even going to pick it up. So a bit of a gloomy and a gray start to your Saturday morning, but just like today, we will see that cloud cover fizzle out and we'll get our peaks of sunshine as we go later into the afternoon once again. But it is going to kind of be a half and half forecast for your Saturday. Gloomy, maybe a bit misty to start out your Saturday morning. As we wrap up your Saturday afternoon and evening, it will be a much sunnier forecast for those hours that we're still dealing with some daylight. And then after that, we head into the evening and nighttime hours, and it still will continue to be crystal clear. Sunday is going to be the best of the bunch. We'll start out with some sunshine in the forecast. We'll have some passing clouds throughout the afternoon, but nothing that produces anything in the way of rain. And that takes us all the way into the beginning of the new work week next Monday. So your weekend outlook, your rain chances at about 40% for the remainder of your Friday. That's taking into account what's going to happen for the rest of the early afternoon and also maybe there's about 10% chance of a sprinkle throughout your Friday evening. I imagine once Ben comes in later, he's going to bump that 40 down to about a 10% chance. And we could throw a 10% chance on Saturday and Sunday, but overall, I'm just not believing that many of you are going to even see something in the way of a mist or a sprinkle shower. If you do, plan accordingly, but it's such light rain in nature, it's really not even affecting anything that you are doing outdoors. So the bigger story are the temperatures, where we'll start out around 50 degrees tomorrow morning, 70 degrees for a high temperature on Saturday afternoon. And then, like I said, Sunday going to be the best of the bunch. Probably feeling a tad bit chilly in the morning hours, 43 degrees for a morning low. But the trade-off is you will be much warmer into the afternoon, 77 degrees for a high temperature as we roll into the first day of March. I guess I could have thrown a little banner on Sunday right there to indicate that it is the first day of the third month of the year. But let's talk about the breezy conditions, because that's one thing that graphic doesn't say unless we are to dictate it and maybe put gusty winds or breezy conditions on it. Well, after we get through the rest of today, say goodbye to the breeze. And I think that's a very welcome change in our forecast, because that's something we have been dealing with over the last couple of days, especially over recent weeks, even going back into last weekend where we had our wind advisory and we've had our fair share of wind gusts get up to 30 to 40 miles per hour, which is a little bit windier than we would expect. So this frontal boundary is going to pass through, but it's not going to usher in that cooler air, I guess, into the forecast. It will usher in some slightly drier air, and it's also not going to result in gusty winds after the passage of this boundary. So Friday, Saturday, all the way to Sunday, we might have maybe a gust up to 10 miles per hour at the very most, but it doesn't look like the breeze builds back in until we get into Monday morning. Now keep this in mind. This is going to be very important to your forecast as we go into the beginning of next week, where we will start to see some gustier northeasterly winds. And this is kind of a telltale sign that we are going to have a bit of a wedge set up as we go into the beginning of next week. So something I wish I wasn't showing you, but it's that time of year. That's the only downside of having some premature spring-like temperatures. You have some premature allergies in the forecast. So here's your allergy monitor, where we will be talking about the pollen just about each and every weekly forecast that I do. I'm probably going to do one of these each and every day to let you know if the tree pollen is going to be bad, the grass, the ragweed, but this weekend specifically, tree pollen is going to be high. Not as high for your Friday, which is going to be a good thing. For any Friday evening plans, Friday night plans, I would recommend making some plans throughout that time throughout your Friday evening and the night. just due to the fact of this, because once we welcome back sunshine, we start to dry out. That rain this morning has done a good job of washing away anything in the way of pollen, but tree pollen is going to be high for the remainder of the weekend. We'll have some low levels of grass pollen, not zero like we do have for ragweed, and we'll also have some moderate levels of mold. Typically, your mold levels are a little bit higher after you do have something in the way of a rainmaker, but we're right in the beginning of allergy season. Mold levels are going to remain present basically year-round, not just during allergy season, but that's something to be on the lookout for. But I would definitely make sure that you're taking your allergy medications, your Allegra, your Claritin, if you are more susceptible to tree pollen bothering you. I know myself, I've been sneezing quite a lot in the studio, so I know that I am going to probably take some Allegra as we go across the course of this weekend. Now on to some more good news. I have been talking about Mercer baseball quite a bit on these extended forecasts. Well, they have another weekend series here at home in Macon, so a great opportunity to go watch them squaring off against Penn, and they do have a 3-game series kick-starting on Friday evening, I should say, at 6 p.m. There's the possibility of a shower, maybe have the raincoat ready to go. In all likelihood, you're very likely not going to need the raincoat out at Ortho Georgia Park. 62 degrees around first pitch, and then we go into game 2 on Saturday, which it is going to be mostly cloudy to start the game. I do imagine that cloud cover begins to clear the farther along into the middle innings and maybe getting into the 7th inning stretch that you go. But 60 degrees for a temperature around first pitch. That number will be a little bit warmer if you are to get some peaks of sunshine a little bit earlier. In game 3, the best of the bunch, hopefully, as the Bears are preparing to sweep Penn, and that's going to be Sunday at 1 p.m. It's going to be feeling like spring at the ballpark over at Ortho Georgia Park. Sunset going to be at 6:30, so just after first pitch later on for game 1 on Friday evening. The Georgia Bulldogs, I don't think they have traveled whatsoever so far for baseball season. They are facing off against Oakland, and no, not Oakland, California. This is Oakland University up in Michigan. Many of you may remember that team from March Madness a couple years ago with Jack Golke, who set a record for, I think, threes. But we're getting into that time of year, of course, as well. But not to talk about March Madness basketball-wise, the Georgia Bulldogs do have a 4-game series this weekend. Doubleheader on Saturday, a game Sunday afternoon, and a game Friday afternoon. Looking like great weather for each and every day. But once again, just like the forecast down here in Macon, it is looking like Sunday is going to be the best of the bunch. Some great spring-like weather, and there's still the chance of some spotty rain throughout Friday afternoon getting into around 3 p.m. But doubleheader on Saturday, first game at 1, next game going to be roughly around 5 p.m., probably about 30 minutes after the conclusion of game 2. And then the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, top 10 team in the nation, squaring off against Northwestern up in Atlanta at Rush Chandler Stadium. Maybe a drizzle for game 1, but I think Atlanta, out of those 3 forecasts that I've showed you for Atlanta, Athens, or Macon, has the least likelihood of seeing anything in the way of rain. It's just going to be a story of some upper 60s and low 70s each and every time you get into first pitch over the course of this 3-game series that the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets do have this weekend. So a bit of an ACC Big Ten matchup right there. It is going to be an eventful weekend of some college baseball, and try to get out and go see your teams while they are all in town during this beginning stretch of the season. They will start to travel more and more and more once they get into conference play in a couple of weeks. Weekend Grillcast. If you have a steak that you have just been kind of dying and waiting to really go outside and fire up the grill for, well, you have nothing but green spatulas over the course of Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If you do see a little bit of a shower, it's going to be very short-lived, so it's nothing to really cancel any of those grill plans for. But now we'll talk about the temperatures as we go across the course of this weekend, which we already hinted at. Sunday going to be the best of the bunch as we roll into the month of March. But take a look at your numbers as we go into the beginning of next week. Not a substantial cool down, but there is a downward trend with your numbers. Monday, 74, 71 as we go into Tuesday. That is going to be because of our wedge setup. So some cooler and drier air, slightly, not really significantly, is going to funnel in from the northeast, and that's going to result in some slightly cooler high temperatures as we go into Monday and Tuesday afternoons. And that will also very likely translate a little bit with your morning lows, but I would just go ahead and get used to numbers not necessarily in the 50s. They will return back somewhere into the 40s. In fact, Sunday morning is likely to feel the closest to average that we do see, still looking to be a little bit above average by a couple of degrees for both Monday and Tuesday mornings. But maybe a forecast that warrants some light layering, and then you won't need that layering as you head into the afternoon. You're going to hear us say that quite a lot over the next couple of months. That's what happens when you get into fall and you get into spring. It's going to be dress in layers weather because the morning is going to have a chill to it, but the afternoon is going to feel nice and picture perfect. So here's a look at your long-range models in terms of your rain chances, maybe a few spotty shower chances. Nothing looks very organized for next week. So we're going to go ahead and start out by saying that. We'll kind of flash through the pause points because you're not seeing really any rhyme or reason to these rain chances. If we had something like, say, Arkansas, Missouri, over to Tennessee and Kentucky have as we go into Wednesday afternoon, that would warrant a better rain chance. But it does look like whatever weather system pops up, mainly going to be to the west and the northwest of us as we go all the way into Thursday, even going into next Friday. Nothing besides maybe some showers that are going to operate off the heat of the day, those pop-up showers, maybe even hearing a rumble of thunder. Not looking like anything too substantial in the way of rain chances. So our rain chances are going to remain low until we can get a better picture view of this on short-range Futureview or the long-range models come into some better agreement. But one thing does look certain as we roll into probably the second week of March, so March 6th all the way through the 12th, which will be, I believe, next Friday through the following Thursday, we have a very good probability of being above normal. So I do anticipate that some 80s are going to be back in the forecast, starting as soon as next weekend and going into the following work week after that. It's not often that we see this dark of a shade of maybe some red or maybe some maroon. Now looking at it, not sure if the colors necessarily line up with the legend right there, but nonetheless, I promise you that we are in the upper end of the range of seeing some above average temperatures. And it's been a while since I've seen this graphic so green, that same window, March 6th all the way through the 12th. It does look like areas over to the west of us, like we were seeing on the long-range models, have a greater chance of seeing some above normal rainfall. But we have some pretty good chances here. We haven't seen some boxes, maybe around 2 to 3 boxes over to the right in terms of having a pretty decent chance at seeing some above normal rainfall, which we're going to continue to keep our fingers crossed that we can get after I did just show you that drought monitor, reiterating the fact that we all need some rain here in central Georgia. So looking ahead, time change, not this weekend, but it's going to be next weekend. We are going to spring forward. We are going to lose an hour of sleep. Yes, I know this is something that many of you are probably not happy about, but we are going to trade that hour of sleep for some later sunsets. So the sunset, as we go into next Sunday evening, is going to be around 7:30 as opposed to 6:30, which it does sit at right now. So that's what's going to happen in about 9 days. Soak up this weekend while it does last because you are going to lose that hour of sleep as we go into next week. Consider this your warning as of right now. So we're just over a week away from that time change. St. Patrick's Day in 18 days. So just under 3 weeks away from St. Patty's Day. Again, that's going to be on a Tuesday, March 17th. Maybe make your plans to celebrate the weekend before, maybe make your plans to celebrate the weekend after, or make sure that you're going ahead and requesting for that Wednesday off if you have plans to say maybe travel down to Dublin, celebrate in downtown Dublin, or if you have plans to go all the way down to the coast and go to Savannah to celebrate St. Patty's Day. First day of spring, just 3 days after that, that's actually going to be on March 20th, which will be a Friday. So maybe just go ahead and wait until the weekend after to celebrate St. Patrick's Day because it will be the start of a new season and we are going to be getting very excited about those warmer temperatures that will be in store from there on out. And then Easter going to be in 37 days, so a little bit over a month until we get into Easter Sunday. I believe it is going to be on April 5th. It's the first Sunday that we do have across the month of April, but a lot of fun things do come along with March. Obviously, the start of spring, St. Patrick's Day, you have March Madness, you have the World Baseball Classic coming up, you have some really good golf tournaments, and eventually, we're going around Easter time, we're going to be talking about the Masters. Can't wait to break out all of those fun graphics that we do have in the future. And that's not even to count, say, Cherry Blossom Festival, all the fun spring festivals that we do have all across central Georgia. So we're going to continue to have a whole lot of weekend specific forecasts for all those festivals that we do have coming up. Can't wait to bring you all the good news with that. So in terms of the rain chances, those will be a thing of the past after we get through really the next couple of hours, early in the afternoon, and then I think we'll hold on to a few isolated sprinkles, but that is going to be just confined to a select few areas, hence the word isolated. It's only going to happen in maybe one end of the county. Other end of the county might be nice and dry, partly cloudy. You will see some peaks of sunshine later on to wrap up your Friday evening, and I think the rest of this weekend is going to be an absolute treat, especially on Sunday. Would definitely make plans, or recommend making some plans with some high temperatures in the upper 70s on Sunday afternoon, and is looking like we're going to have the least amount of cloud cover present on Sunday as well. So that's where things stand, and we'll look forward to a stretch of some spring-like temperatures, which looks to hopefully take us all the way 21 days into the future for that first official day of spring. But we'll continue to keep an eye out for anything that you need to know weather-wise. Otherwise, it's looking like a pretty quiet stretch of weather that we do have into the beginning of next week. But being quiet weather-wise is good by all means from your weather team after the eventful last month or two that we have continued to have. So thanks for tuning in for your extended weekend forecast. Hope you have a safe and a blessed weekend, and we'll see you back on Monday at 11 a.m.